1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's the 10
things I know about the Philippines.
It's the 10
Things I know about the Philippines.
Number 1.
Before I get too far into these 10 things, these aren't the only 10 things that I presently know, or even did know at one point. It's just when I started this project, I decided I'm going to sit down here and write 10 things that kind of first come to mind that I know about the Philippines. Kind of top of mind things, I guess. And so these are the 10 things that I wrote before I even started this project. I think I've learned a lot more even since starting 3 weeks ago. But these are the 10 things I came up with before I even started recording. Number 1 here is in the Philippines, they don't view family relationships as rigidly or as compartmentalized as we do here in the US. So here in the United States, we have something called consanguinity charts, which is charts I can use to say, you're my second cousin once removed, or you're my great aunt on my mother's side. In contrast, my mom would always say things like, I don't know why you have to say second cousin, or whatever cousin removed. In the Philippines, they just be your cousin. When I was a boy, we went to the San Diego area to visit my mom's family, mom's side of the family, so the Filipino side. It was my grandma Dirama, my aunt Ellen, and my auntie Nieva. And I'm sorry to say this, but I didn't actually know how I was connected to my auntie Nieva. I knew she wasn't my mom's sister because she only had one sister, my aunt Ellen. I was just like, I guess it doesn't matter because in the Philippines it doesn't matter how you're connected, so I guess it doesn't matter. And then to make matters even worse, I didn't actually know we were saying Auntie Nieva because we never called my parents' siblings aunt or auntie, or if we just called them by their first name, and if we did say anything, we said aunt, not auntie. So I didn't actually recognize that we were saying Auntie Nieva. I thought we were saying a fancy Filipino word because she was the Filipino side of the family. I thought we were saying Auntie Nieva, and it was a Filipino word. It wasn't till I was a lot older and possibly even an adult where I realized that we were saying Auntie Nieva because my mom was showing us some old photos, and she got to one of my grandma Dirama, and she said, here's your, when my grandma was little, she said, here's your grandma Dirama, and here's her sister, Nieva. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? I felt like the kid from Sandlot when he discovered that Babe Ruth and the Great Bambino are the same person.
A Great Bambino! Oh my god, you mean that's the same guy? Yes!
I was like, we're not saying Auntie Nieva, we're saying Auntie Nieva because she's my mom's aunt because she's my grandma's sister. I'm like, oh my gosh, and that's why we call her husband Uncle Adore, because she is my Auntie Nieva. I was like, it makes so much sense now. So, my point is, in my American, United States raised mind, I had to think of it in terms of consanguinity charts to understand the relationships. So that's how I discovered that my Auntie Nieva, how I was related to her. That her name was not Auntie Nieva, it was Auntie Nieva. Number 2 is the food is mostly good, but I don't know how to pronounce most of the food that we eat, or that my mom would make for me. I know chicken adobo, but like there's something called ginitong, and I don't know if I'm saying that right. I guess I'll just try and list foods that I know and like, but there's ginitong, pancit, or pancit. See, I don't know how to say that. I don't know where like the accents in the words go. But there's ginitong is like a dessert, but apparently you're supposed to say ginitong halo halo if it's the dessert. Maybe. It's like I'm saying, I don't know what they're called. There's pancit. Obviously, there's lumpia, the pork, lechon. I don't know if that's the whole pig or just what you have with the pork. And then there's like the stew thing that she makes, and again, I don't know what the name of it is, but it's really good. It has like little quail eggs in it. And that's my number 2. The food is good. Don't know what most of the things are called. And in fact, when I go to a Filipino restaurant and I like see the names of them, and like, I don't know what these things are. I don't know how to pronounce them, and I have to like tell them, like, ask the people, like, what is that? And they'll explain it to me, and I'm like, I don't know what you just said, but it looks good, so I'll try it. Number three is kind of along with food. The one I do know how to pronounce is spaghetti. That the Filipino spaghetti is very sweet and it has hot dogs in it. And since starting this, I didn't know the background of it, but since starting this, my understanding here is that this happened in World War II when the U.S. soldiers liked to eat spaghetti with meat sauce. They ran out of spaghetti sauce, and so Filipino cook discovered how to make spaghetti sauce substitutes out of bananas, which is where banana ketchup comes from, but it was just a lot sweeter. And then they didn't have enough meat to put into the spaghetti, so they started adding hot dogs. And so that's where the hot dogs and the spaghetti comes from. So it's kind of a World War II era invention. Number four is that the common restaurants that you'll see that are Filipino related are Goldilocks and Jollibee. The first time I went to Jollibee, I did not understand why it was fried chicken, like KFC. And frankly, I still don't. I know that there are chickens in the Philippines, but I don't know why fried chicken is a thing. But it's good. It's good enough. And then Goldilocks is like a Filipino bakery. I know they had a lot of them in California, and they had one in Henderson, Las Vegas area where I grew up. And it's a good bakery. But I also know that no matter which one you go to, it seems like they're always out of halo halo, which I like to get, but sometimes it's hard to find in stock in these restaurants. So that's number four. The Philippines was ruled by Spain for a very long time, and because of that, it has a long history of Christianity. But also, the Filipino people have kind of been a people that have been born out of, I guess I'm going to use the word oppression. I don't know if that's totally right. But let me play a clip from a movie that my mom showed me, which was the Fabulous Filipino Brothers by the family of the guy who plays Rufio in Hook, if you're familiar with that. But they kind of explain the background of the Filipino. Again, the word that keeps coming to me is oppression. But let me play that real fast.
There's so much going on.
If you didn't get it by now, they're Filipino, specifically Filipino-American. In some ways, it's the same, and in other ways, very different. The generous by nature, Filipinos adapt to their surroundings more than most. I mean, it makes sense. They've been occupied by the Americans, the Japanese. Heck, the country is named after King Philip II of Spain. It's probably why we say Bahala na so much, come what may. Anyway, point being, Filipinos are a weird mix. Like they're Asians, but like the other Asians, which is...
In my mind, my experience, observation, Filipino people have learned to be a very resilient people, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that they've kind of had to fight for their own space in their own country. Number six is speaking of fighting for your own space in your own country. I also happen to know from something my mom would always tell me is that the Filipinos killed the Spanish explorer Magellan as he was trying to circumnavigate the entire globe, the entire Earth. He didn't quite make it. He almost did, but he got stopped in the Philippines. And I don't know much about that story. It's something I'm going to explore later on, but I know that the Filipinos killed Magellan.
7.
When Filipinos get together, it can get very loud. And I know that from my mom would have get-togethers with friends from high school that she's had for a long, long, long time. And every time I know they were coming over, us kids would kind of be like, okay, get ready, it's going to get loud. But they just enjoy each other's company, enjoy being together, and it manifests itself in noise. Number 8 is that there are a lot of languages or dialects in the Philippines. My mom speaks Tagalog. I do not. But when I would hear her talk on the phone, I did pick up a few things. I know, for example, like, oo is yes. And then she would always say, talaga, which means really. And then another one she would say is bakit or baket, something like that, which I learned means why. So those are the 3 Filipino words I picked up from just listening to my mom talk on the phone. And then the other word I know that's Tagalog from her is the word for no, which I believe is shet. Because sometimes she'll stub her toe and she'll say, oh shit. So, oh no, right? Right? Number 9 is I know that in the Philippines they're more comfortable with multi-generational households than we are here in the United States. My mom would comment, that when you were to get married, it'd be a normal thing to live with your in-laws or your parents for lots of people and just to have a big household. That's another thing they mentioned in the movie that I mentioned before, The Fabulous Filipino Brothers. I'll just play that here.
But we're not like you. We're not Chinese. We're Asian too, yeah, but we're jungle Asian. You know what I'm saying?
No, what are you saying?
We're tribal. We live together. Growing up, we never lived in the house by ourselves, just parents and kids. We always lived with my grandparents.
Yeah, we still do.
At one time, I think we had like 21 people in the house. 3-bedroom house, 1 bathroom. While you're taking a shower, someone's taking a...
Shit.
What is your point, Teo?
Jungle Asians!
But it's just a tight-knit community in general that looks after each other. The word I've learned since I wrote this down, I didn't know this word at the time, was, and I'm hoping I pronounce it right, is bayanihan. Bayanihan is the word. I don't know what that means, but I just recognize that it's there. But it's things just like they're more, I shouldn't say more they are very generous with their money, belongings, their lifestyle. Just a very generous people, very tight-knit community.
Number 10.
And then the last, number 10, is just that I know a little bit about Filipino parties, things that go on. I mentioned earlier in the food section the lechon, which is the pig. We actually had that maybe a couple times when I was a kid, which is the whole roasted pig. We actually did a little debut party for my daughter who turned 18, or she's turning 18. And we looked at getting one of those. But I can tell you, at least here in the Seattle area, they run about $450 for the roasted pig, and we just weren't in the mood to spend that kind of money, so we just did regular pork, but we had a picture of it at least and explained to people what it could have been. But in addition to that, I wrote that there's a stick clap game, but I since learned the word for that, which is tinikaling, which is a dance, customary dance of the Philippines, involving clapping sticks together and skipping over them. I actually went to a lesson for that literally yesterday.
Okay, ready, go. And, put your done. And, close. 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 And, close.
And then the other party game I know is Mancala, which is a game you play with rocks and the little... I don't know how to explain it. And then I have more recently learned, and I'm going to address this later too, that apparently the Philippines is responsible for the yo-yo. I didn't know that, but number 10 is parties and party games from the Philippines. So those are my 10 things. Again, these are the 10 things that kind of came top of mind when I was starting this program and this project. And I kind of wanted to kind of set this as a baseline to springboard and to see what else I can learn, and maybe to see how much progress I've made a year from now, and if I can explain these things a little better than I did here today. Yeah. So there you have it. Those are my 10 things that I know about the Philippines, at least as of 3 weeks ago. Let me know what you think I got right, what you think I got wrong, what holes I'm missing that I could fill in. I appreciate your thoughts, comments, and of course, if you enjoy what you heard today, please like and subscribe and leave a rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I hope I'll see you on the next episode. So long. You've just listened to the Part Filipino Podcast, the podcast for people who aren't quite sure if they actually count as Filipino. I was your host, Leland Fox, and I'm half Filipino. I hope you'll join me as I continue to explore what it means to be part Filipino.